Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first visual, I guess you could call it live, even though it's going to be played tomorrow. This is Thursday. It's going to be played on Friday. Welcome to the first visual Real Country Jukebox podcast with Raymond and James. It's a nice day. What's up, Raymond?
Yeah, man, I tell you what, it is nice. I'm glad to be on. I'm glad to finally do a live one, but still kind of, we're trying to deal with the wind, the bumblebees, but all that stuff's good, though. I'm glad I had the wind and the bumblebees.
We're dealing with nature. And we are out here in, is this technically Williamston?
I call it farm life.
Farm life.
Because it's kind of just out in the middle of nowhere. So.
Yeah, we're out in Martin County. This is where we'll be shooting a lot. Not always. We'll verify. Sometimes we'll be in Greenville. Sometimes, different places.
Yeah,
but
because we don't have a designated spot, so it could be at any of these places.
Yeah. And today's a little bit different. This is not necessarily a top 10, but Raymond's going to tell you what we're discussing today. And you heard Clint Black's State of Mind as we were coming on. That's kind of the theme of what we're doing today. Raymond's going to tell you about it.
Yeah, so basically we're just some songs that bring back, just like the song says of Clint Black, that it's songs that bring back memories of us from, it could be from recently to as we were little kids. So we're just kind of going with that for the most part. It ain't gonna be listing. It ain't no top tens. It's gonna be it's just a conversation piece.
Yeah, just a discussion
for the first time. So, but I'll let you lead it off as always.
Okay. The first song I was thinking of, and I've discussed this on other podcasts, but it fits several different ways you want to talk about the song. Is "Roll On" by Alabama. When we were kids, or when I was a kid, I say kid to a teenager, "Roll On" by Alabama was a really big song, and we're talking about songs taking you back to a time and songs making you think of a memory or something like that. To me, when I hear "Roll On," I think about, I had a first cousin that lived in Georgia, and she would visit, I don't know, a couple times a year probably, as my daddy's sister's daughter. And for some reason, she would visit a couple times a year, and she was a big Alabama fan. So it kind of makes me think of when she would come in town and visit. And then at the same time, it reminds me of one of my favorite restaurants that Greenville ever had was Pepe's Pizza. And that song, we would always, like I said, she would come in town and always wanted to hear that song. And I remember her being with us at Pepe's Pizza. And most times she wasn't, because like I said, she was here a couple times a year. But it makes me think of that, and it makes me think of Pepe's Pizza. We would go sometimes before church on a Wednesday night or after church on a Sunday night. And me and my brothers would always see how many quarters we could get so we could go play the jukebox at Pepe's. And "Roll On" by Alabama was always one of the first songs we play on there. So I mentioned it in my story songs a couple weeks ago, but it also makes me think about my cousin and think about Pepe's Pizza and the jukebox.
And it also came up in your favorite band song. I mean, that's
true.
It's a good song. I mean, you can bring that up all the time.
Yeah, it checks a lot of boxes.
Yeah, for sure. One of my favorite ones that I think about from a childhood memory, very young, is I'm pairing them together. Working Man's PhD and Midnight Montgomery.
Yeah.
When I was a small kid, my family formed, and me and my little brother were too small to be out there all the time, and we'd go out there and goof off, but we weren't old enough to work. I was maybe like 4 and he was maybe 2, somewhere in that area.
Yeah. And
my grandma would make these homemade biscuits, cheese, sausage, ham, the good stuff. And
I'm getting hungry.
You ain't lying. We're gonna go get something when we get done with this. So, but and then she'd serve those long neck Pepsi and Mountain Dew. The Pepsi man would bring them right to the house.
Oh yeah.
But while she was in there making those, me and my brother would be playing with tractors and stuff and watching I believe it was TNN back then. And
TNN.
And the music videos would be on, and I just specifically remember constantly Working Man's PhD and Midnight Montgomery, both of them coming on. And whenever I hear either of those songs, it makes me think of her. And usually in these, when I think of songs that remind me of people, I spent so much time with my granddad, with both of us being men or whatever.
Right.
But that particular setting always makes me think of my grandma. So,
It's just a good memory.
Yeah, it is.
You're sitting back at grandma's house every time you hear that song.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fun. Another one that I was thinking of, and this day and age, this would be a little wild. Back before you had social media, you didn't have Facebook or MySpace or even any of that stuff. Years ago, I would think it's probably the early 2000s. the song I'm getting ready to mention. I'm not a big Rascal Flatts fan, but I liked a lot of their early stuff. And "Praying for Daylight" was the first single they had on radio. And when I hear that song, it takes me back to, and I don't know why it didn't relate to this situation at all, but it was one of those things where the song was just playing a lot at that time. And when I think about that song, I'm back in that place. And one thing that happened around the time that song was out was I went to George Strait Country Fest. He had a concert, a big country fest. He had Tim McGraw on it, Alan Jackson, Leanne Womack, Lila McCann at the time, Mark Chestnut, Brad Paisley. He had, for 2 or 3 years, he did a big country fest. He did it in Raleigh, he did it in Charlotte, and it was a big to-do. He had a lot of people. It was an all-day festival. And I was with my friends in the crowd, and this girl sent her friend over and said that she wanted to talk to me for whatever reason. So, it's kind of a festival atmosphere. So I got together with her and, went and joined her section or whatever and kind of sat with her and got to know her and stuff like that. And we kind of became friends or whatever. And kind of hit it off, but you don't think of it. You hang out with somebody in a town that you don't live in or whatever. You don't think nothing else about it. And typically you wouldn't. Well, at this particular time, we had a good time. We enjoyed conversation and stuff like that. And then come to find out, she lived in, and I wouldn't say her name on the air or anything like that. She's probably not listening to this anyway. But she lived in Georgia. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I live in North Carolina. And, I didn't think nothing of it because I didn't try to get her number or anything like that. It was just a one day, hang out, get to know each other, have a good time. Mm-hmm. So then I get back home, and over the next week or so, it's one of those things where, sometimes you just can't get it off your mind. Like, what ifs, what might have been, let's see what could happen, so on and so forth. So I knew what she did. I knew her first name. I knew what she did. She was a school teacher, a certain type of school teacher. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I'm not going to get into specifics on here because I'm not going to talk about anybody that knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, so at that time, like I said, you didn't have social media, but you had the internet. It was the dark ages. Yeah. So this particular town, I was able to, and this would be crazy nowadays, but I don't think it was at that time because you just want to see where some road could lead. Mm-hmm. And I called a few schools in that area, and I tried to find out if anybody, I think I made the excuse that she left her purse or I left something. So how you are when you're young.
This sounds like a movie.
Yeah. Well, anyway, long story short, I called a few schools, and as luck would have it, the person that answered the phone at one of the schools was her cousin and also worked at the school.
Really?
So, crazy situation.
Gosh, this is crazy.
I was able to connect with her. It was a good connection. And I went back and forth to this town in Georgia a few times.
Gosh, knows, man.
So we kind of saw each other a little bit and made something out of it. And like normal long distance things, 90% of the time they don't last. So it didn't. Yeah. But I made a friend out of the deal, and I got a good story to tell. And it is kind of like a movie. It's like watching what's the movie where they tried to do that? Serendipity was a movie where they tried to do that.
I think of
there was a movie called On the Line where they kind of tried to do that. So I did kind of live this for a degree, but nowadays I wouldn't even attempt that because now you look crazy. But at that time, you can't say it was crazy because it was successful as long as it could.
Have you ever seen The Sweetest Thing with Christine Applegate and
I have seen that. I don't remember everything about it, but I've seen that movie.
Yeah. I think Jason Bateman's in it. Yeah, that's a funny movie.
I have seen that movie. Now I'm going to have to rewatch it and see if anything connects.
It kind of reminds me of that a little
But anyway, I said all that to say I would drive back and forth to Georgia and, make these connections and everything. And Praying for Daylight was big on the radio. So now every time I hear Praying for Daylight, I'm back at that concert in Charlotte or back in that little city in Georgia.
Yeah, that's an interesting story for sure. That's wild.
I do keep up with her a little bit. She's a real nice girl. She's successful, married, got kids. Everything's going good for her. So,
Well, I'm sure that's hard to keep it, a couple hours, 6 hours? I think from here to Atlanta, it's like 5.5 or something.
Crazy to keep that up, but,
Yeah, that's cool, though. My next one is Night Train by Jason Aldean.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
This song weren't out at the time, but that whole song reminds me of when me and my wife first started dating. It would have been about maybe 5 to 7 years before then.
Okay.
But it's just a lot of specifics. Like there's actually a road down in Janesville where I'm from called Old Mill Road, or it's called Mill Road. But it says Old Mill Road in the song. And it's just the whole song kind of reminds me.
Maybe he wrote it for y'all.
He could have. So But that's just it. There ain't a whole lot of story behind it. Well, there's some story, but I ain't gonna get into specifics. But
Right.
but it's kind of like every time I hear it, I think of when we first started dating, kind of.
That's cool, man. That's a great story.
Yeah.
And obviously that's been a success.
Yeah.
So still going strong. Another one I think of, and he don't get talked about enough, is Neil McCoy. Neil McCoy had a song called "They're Playing Our Song,"
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny how sometimes, like those first two songs I mentioned, it resonated pretty hard with a certain time because you heard the song so much. I don't know what it is about this song, but back in high school, we used to hang out back and forth between the mall parking lot and Sonic, and they were close together. And we'd ride back and forth, hang out at Sonic for a while, hang out at the mall, hang out at Sonic.
Oh, you talking about Pit Plaza, like the mall? And the Sonic, that's where was that Sonic at?
That Sonic
Because I don't really
is
know
where
Greenville that
Chipotle
well.
is on Greenville Boulevard now.
Oh, really?
Is where it was then. So it was
Man.
very close. All you did was cross, what is it? All you did was cross Arlington. And you
Yeah.
were right there. But anyway, for some reason, I remember sitting in Sonic. We had ordered some slushies and some food. It's getting late at night. You know, you're hanging out before curfew. And we had curfew back then. And I remember sitting there hanging out with everybody, and Neil McCoy, they're playing our song, came on. And I don't, for all I know, it could have just been that one time, but for some reason it stuck in my mind. Because I doubt that, you know, it would be ironic enough that they're playing our song would be on every time we went to Sonic.
Yeah.
So, but I always think about that and think about those, that was our two spots, back and forth between the mall and Sonic. And every time I hear they're playing our song, I'm sitting at Sonic drinking a slushie, getting ready to ride back over to the mall, seeing what's going on.
Yeah.
Crazy as it sounds.
That is crazy.
Yep.
For sure. I couldn't imagine, like, you know, when I was in high school, I think I might have went to Greenville like 3 or 4 times, like ever.
That's probably all you needed.
The
fun's always to be had in the country.
Yeah,
So.
true. My next one is Gone Country, and by Alan Jackson. And it's weird because when I was a small kid, like, this story sounds crazy, but no, I hear them wood ducks.
They're calling our name for
Yeah.
baseball. We're making a plug for the Wood Ducks. We're ready to go to Wood Ducks. Yeah, that's how our whole hanging out started. Me and him and a bunch of other people going to Wood Ducks games, and
Yeah.
we're looking forward to it next month. That's a shout out to the Wood Ducks. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. Thirsty Thursday.
Thirsty Thursday.
But Gone Country by Alan Jackson, man, when I was a kid, me and the same brother I was talking about that we would be playing in my grandma's floor
Yeah.
when she was cooking or whatever. My dad was like a bartender type deal at a small bar in town, and it seemed like we were there all the time, but I'm sure it was just a time or two that we went in there, but it felt like we were there all the time. But we would be back there at one of the back pool tables, just like the whole time we were there, hitting the cue ball back and forth. Like never for us it was fun because we were like, you know, 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah.
I'm sure that would bore the crap out of somebody, but Liam did it at Tiebreakers. He loved it.
It wasn't me. I did that as a kid.
So, but anyway, every time we were there, and like I said, I still ain't sure why we were there, but every time we were there, Gone Country would come on. It just reminds me of that. And another thing too that reminds me of that time, you know, like back before the Trulies and the White Claws or whatever. I just remember specifically like everybody that would go in there, you know, it was like Long Neck Budweiser, Coors Banquet, stuff like that. You know,
standard stuff.
Yeah, and that was back when you could actually smoke in a bar and stuff, and you know, it was just it was a fun experience, but I don't think it happened as many times as in my mind it did.
Right.
I was just so young; it seemed like it happened all the time.
It's always bigger in your mind, in the memory.
But for us, I mean, we just loved going there. Though. I mean, it was like a festival or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but that's about all I have for that one.
Okay, another one I thought of is Ronnie Milsap. She Keeps the Home Fires Burning.
Mm-hmm.
I love that song anyway, and love Ronnie Milsap. Thought he was extremely underrated. But also taking you back to a place, not only a time, but a place, like Clint Black says in that intro song, take you back to a place and time. When I hear She Keeps the Home Fires Burning by Ronnie Milsap, I think of a little campground about 10 minutes from here, Green Acres Campground in Beargrass. Because that's practically, like I tell people all the time, you know, where are you from? I'm from Stokes. I live in Greenville, but I grew up in Beargrass. I do tell people that sometimes because, no, technically I didn't live there, but probably from the time I was 6 or 7 years old to a teenager, probably at least a good 10 or 12 years, my family kept a place at Green Acres Campground.
Yeah.
And which was a fun place. You had a lake, you had boats, you had we rode our bikes. I mean, they had live music, video games, and
It's good
the
people run
jukebox.
that place too.
Yeah, and so She Keeps Home Fires Burning. We would always play that one at the jukebox at Green Acres Campground.
Mm-hmm.
And so now when I hear that song, and that was a nice little game room and stuff like that anyway, but we love that jukebox and playing that song. So, that's what I think of when I think of that song.
Yeah. There ain't much to this story. It's just funny because every time I hear it, I literally think of my first date with my wife. But the very first time we ever went on a date, we'd only met one time.
Yeah.
So we were kind of brand new to hanging out. But that Sinners Like Me by Eric Church had just came out, that album. And we we were listening to it. I think we went through it like without hitting skip 4 or 5 times, except for Lightning. I think we listened to it one time. That ain't one you just want to crank up all the time.
Yeah, it's not.
But I remember the first time, because it might have been her first time ever hearing any of those songs. But when we heard Two Pink Lines, she was like, "Well, this is real appropriate for a first date." and now whenever I hear, which it ain't a song.
Well, eventually you got there.
Yeah, that's true. But it ain't a song that I listen to all the time. But when I do,
Sure.
that's the first thing I think about is being. I can tell you exactly where we were. It seems, and we went to a lot of places, but it seemed like we were at the Dairy Palace in Washington.
Mm-hmm. Good spot.
Getting like a chocolate milkshake or something, and hearing it there. So
Yeah.
and she was like, "Well, this is real appropriate for first date." Shout out to the Dairy Palace too.
Right.
We're
I've only
just-
been there one time actually, but it was good.
We're not sponsored by anyone. We're just shouting out to everybody.
We're just shouting out the places we love. That's what it's really about. It's really not about music. It's really about let's let everybody know the places we love. So,
Yeah.
Another one for me probably is Ricky Van Shelton. The Love and Proof album, the whole album. Because, back in the day before, like I said, when I was a kid, I didn't know what radio singles were or anything like that. I just thought, everything that you listened to on a cassette tape at this time was stuff that was on the radio. But I remember my mom had the record. Mama had the record, Daddy had the cassette tape. And I remember mainly riding around the truck listening to the Love and Proof. Swimming Upstream was on there, and I'll Leave This World Loving You. And I think probably even From a Jack to a King, which was a Jack Green remake.
Is Wild Man up there?
It wasn't on that one. Wild Man came later.
That's
But I remember riding around in his truck. And when I think about Ricky Van Shelton, I think about how much my mama loved Ricky Van Shelton first. And then I also think about riding around in Daddy's truck. Green F-150. Beautiful truck. And we would ride around in there and listen to the Love and Proof album.
Do you remember what year it was? The F-150.
I don't know that. He could tell you right off.
Oh, really?
He knows that stuff. But yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Okay. I got you. Mine, the next one I have in mind is Don't Rock the Jukebox by Alan Jackson. And this is a very interesting story because...
The GOAT. We call Alan Jackson the GOAT.
Yeah.
To us, he's the greatest of all time. It's definitely arguable.
No,
but
that's
anyway.
no, that's a fact. That's
it is a fact. Yeah.
You got to trust the science on that.
We're here to state facts. He's at least as good as anybody. Go ahead.
Anyway, so my mom and her sister closest to her were just a couple years apart. And me and my cousin, who's also like my best friend, we're just a couple years apart. And I have very few memories of my aunt because she passed away when I was really little, and my cousin was younger than me. So I'm just going to say 5 and 3 maybe for the ages. So I have less than 5 memories of her, but and it's so few that like I remember her having my mom like a 26th birthday party, and I remember being there. So I know that they were that young, so we were very young too. And I remember that. I remember her babysitting me one time, and then I remember finding out that she passed away, and that's really all I remember. So I don't know what my cousin remembers, but I told all that to say that in my mind, the fourth memory that I swear happened, and I could have just dreamed it up when I was a little kid and it didn't actually happen. I don't know. I was so young that it could have been either way. But for some reason, I remember being somewhere with her and my mom and other people. Like it was like maybe like a birthday party or something, but I don't know for sure. But Don't Rock the Jukebox was playing.
Yeah.
And I actually told this story to my cousin a couple years ago. We were hunting, and I told him about it. And this is why I don't know if it actually happened like I think it did, because I could have dreamed it up. And the only reason why I say that is because I very confidently told him the story I just told you. And he told me, he was like, no, that can't be right, because the place that you're saying that happened at weren't around yet at that time. He said that actually happened a year or two after my mom passed away. So if you're telling me right about the experience with our moms and that song, that could be true, but weren't at that specific place. But it's so weird, because in my mind, that's where it was. And I believe that he knows more than I do on that subject. So it's just, that's an interesting story that every time I hear Don't Rock the Jukebox, I think of that. And I don't mean to sound crazy, but did it happen or did it not? I don't know. I was 5 years old. I could have had that dream one night about the same time period and just like grew up thinking that it was real. I don't know. It sounds crazy, but I definitely remember being with them at the same time. That song was playing. I don't know where I was. And I was so young at the time, it could have been anywhere, to be honest with you. But I just remember there being other people around, and it was like a party type atmosphere, and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, you know, some of that early Alan Jackson stuff sounds a lot like Going Country, Don't Rock the Jukebox, all that real early stuff, you know. And for all I know, man, being that young, I could even have the song wrong. It's weird, and that's one of my favorite state of mind type songs, because it kind of like leaves that question there, you know, where were we, which song was it? It's just, it's still interesting to me, because my memories are so few. That I don't know, every time I hear that song, either way I think of her. So
probably another one for me is probably and I've talked about this before, and I don't want to talk about this to death, but the entire Hard Rain Don't Last album by Theyre Worley.
I'm not laughing at that. It's just,
I don't know what it was, but that first big trip we took to Nashville, that album was huge. We were going to see Daryl, and we listened to that thing from start to finish nonstop. And then that song just always resonates with Nashville. So now, I've said it before, every year, right before, about a month before I'm going to leave for Nashville, usually in November, sometimes in June too. Usually we go in June and go again in November for different reasons. But I always listen to that album probably a month ahead of time nonstop, because it just gets me in the mood for Nashville. It just gets me in a Nashville state of mind.
Yeah, I can see that, because not being funny or nothing, but a lot of times when we go to the beach, which is only not even 2 hours from here, we listen to a lot of Kenny Chesney on the way there. Not the same album every time like you're talking about, but it's just, you know, it kind of gets you in the mood for it. But yeah, that's a good story. I just like to mess with you about the Hard Rain Don't Last thing. Does that give me a pass just to mention Whiskey Myers while we're up here?
It does. You have a pass to mention anything.
Well, that was it right there, Whiskey Myers. So I just had to make sure I brought him up at some point.
Raymond's favorite band, Whiskey Myers. Y'all check them out.
My next one is Little Bitty and Heartland. I got to pair them together because
this is a good story. Y'all like this? This is pretty good.
Well, I might have told it before. I'm not sure.
You told it to me. You haven't told it to them.
Oh, really?
So that's why I was saying y'all need to listen. This is good, because I know it, even though y'all don't know it.
Okay. Well, anyway, so when Liam was, that's my son, as I said before, but for those of you that don't know, but when Liam was very young, I'm gonna say probably 4 months old tops, he was laying on the couch, and I was like singing to him. I was singing Little Bitty to him. And he just acted like it was the greatest thing in the world, which is terrible because my voice is terrible. So, but he was just like kind of doing his best version at that young of dancing, and just really enjoyed it. Well, Stacy recorded it and sent it to Alan Jackson, and either him or someone from his fan base or whatever sent back a personalized autograph directly to him. It said, "To my little bitty fan Liam," from Alan.
That's super cool.
Yeah, he sent that. Sent a onesie that actually like was big enough that he could wear it like throughout that year. It said, "To my little bitty AJ fan" on it, and sent a personalized letter just saying like, now this actually wasn't from him. This was from his daughter, whoever filled it out.
Okay.
Said that that he loves getting stuff like this, especially from children and stuff.
That's great, man.
So every time I hear that song now, you know, I think of that.
Yeah.
And,
a song that you already liked a whole lot, now you love it.
Yeah, and I paired Heartland with that too because, like, Liam loves that movie, Pure Country. And he's always, you know, like, he'd rather watch that than Mickey Mouse or whatever, you know?
He's 3, and he's shown me, I know he won't care that I tell this, his son is 3, and he's shown me videos of anytime Alan Jackson and George Strait come on, he knows who it is, he's right there in front of the TV, he's getting down to it. You're raising your kid right.
Well, the funny thing was, I don't even think I told you this, but the other day we were eating breakfast, and he got on up from we just had like a random, like, I think it was Cody Jinks radio playing, to be honest with you, but it would play random songs that you've liked in the past. And he had never heard Designated Drinker before that I'm aware of. It ain't one I mean, it's a good song, and it's paired with George Strait, which is awesome, but it ain't one I listen to all the time, and I don't think he'd ever heard it. Well, as soon as Alan came on, he hollered out, "Daddy, Alan Jackson's on the radio." And I'm just like, I was proud, but, you know, I was like, "I know, buddy."
Yeah.
And then it was a live version because for the next verse, he was like, "I figured since I'm out in Texas, I bring one of my buddies out to sing with me." And he didn't introduce George Strait or nothing. George just started his, and he was like, "He just brought George Strait out too." I was like,
like y'all at the concert.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It is funny, man. So anyway, I don't want to tie up too much of everyone's time. I don't know if you've got more stories or not. I could go on for hours.
I've got one that's actually my favorite.
Okay.
But I'm not going to tell it because it's if anybody ever sees me and wants to hear about it, I'll tell them. But it's just not one. It's a good story, but it's just not one that person should hear about. It's a positive thing, but that person shouldn't hear about it on air. So it's my favorite one, but that one is even for this is a little too personal. I got to keep it to myself, but it's a good one.
I heard
it's
that.
a fun one. It's a positive one.
Yeah, most of my personal ones are more like, you know, obviously songs that were like played at my wedding, you know, like Forever and For Always by Shania Twain and stuff. And I mean, I've got a list obviously, but those were like the main ones I really wanted to hit on, and just for like the conversation piece. And these weren't in order or top or nothing. It was fun having this conversation, man. And you know, I hope that we can continue to do some of these, like where there's actually a camera, and maybe the weather will cooperate and stuff like that.
Yeah, beautiful day today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll see y'all next week.